everyone. Maybe I should get myself settled before I hit record. I don't know. It's a crazy new thing. Maybe I'll try next time. How are you? How are things out there? I hope you're holding it together. I'm not. Clearly, I'm not. Clearly, I am not. I was gonna do a tag video today. Okay, I don't know technical difficulties if anybody else is experiencing this, but if you have tagged me like in the last 4 or 5 months, all my mentions, you know, the page that you go to on the YouTube studio thing and all the mentions are there. All my mentions have disappeared except for 2. And so I know that I have tags to do. The one I know I need to do is I can't remember the name of it. It's the map tag, sort of like the map of your life tag. And there's like 2 questions. And I think 3 people tagged me to do that tag. Alex Unabridged and Angelia at Read and Reread and James at Quaint and Curious Volumes. I hope that I got all that right. I think they all tagged me to do that tag, but it's the only tag I can remember that I need to do. And I had like 3 other tags, maybe 4, and they're gone. So, technical difficulties. I will keep checking back. I'm assuming that they'll come back because the 2 that are there, there's like one from a year ago and then one that's like recent. And anyway, that's kind of a tag where you got to put some thought into it. And I am just flying by the seat of my pants today. Today, I'm always flying by the seat of my pants. Always, pretty much. So, I don't know why I'm pretending like today I don't have it together. Today I'm just kind of off the cuff. No, that's not true. Anyway, I just thought I would, do a video because it's Tuesday and and I've been wanting to get back on and do another video and try to get back into a rhythm of doing 1 video a week. So, it may be like this. It may just be that I show up and ramble, but you guys are kind of used to that, I guess. I feel like I've brought you along nicely. Not to have too high expectations. So yeah, there's that. So what's been going on since I last talked to you? We went camping. We went camping for the 4th of July weekend, although obviously it was not the 4th of July weekend here. I mean, it was the 4th of July, it just wasn't the holiday. And we are starting a new trail that it's called the Eifelsteig. And it starts somewhere up in North Germany near the Netherlands border, just south of Aachen, Germany. And it goes to Trier. And I think it's like 330 kilometers or something like that. Anyway, we did the first 2 stages of that, or mostly the first 2 stages. We were kind of, in some points there were some detours and we were more like alongside the trail than on the trail. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. It was a time. We had a good time. It was very pretty. The trail was lovely. The area is lovely. We got into Aachen in the afternoon on the first day, and then we stayed in a hotel overnight. And so we got to walk around part of Aachen, which was really, really lovely. Just such a pretty city. So that was cool. It was my first time in that in that city. And so, yeah, Friday morning we got up bright and early and kind of hit, well, not super early, but I guess around 9 we kind of headed out, and we had to take a bus out to the trailhead, and then got to the trailhead, and it was Friday was pretty nice. We had a good day. The weather was beautiful. My husband was really sneezy. My husband was very sneezy. He'd been sneezy since the morning that we left, Thursday morning. And so he was just having a hard time with that. But otherwise, everything was fine. Got to our campground Friday night, did the whole camping thing, put the tent up, had some food, hung around, went to bed kind of early. My husband ended up having like a leak in his sleeping pad, which kind of sucked. Um, so yeah, there was that. And then the next morning we got up and we got going, and everything was fine. The weather again, beautiful, beautiful. And then like around lunchtime, we stopped and had a snack and had a little those little goo things, God, those are disgusting. Ours were like store brand, from Yumbo, was a supermarket here. I'm always like, I'm gonna have to compare supermarkets here to supermarkets in the States, or how I feel about them. And I'm like, Yumbo is like Publix. If you're in the South, you know what Publix is. I don't like Publix. I don't really like Publix. And Albert Heijn would be more like Kroger. And we shop at Albert Heijn. Anyway, that has nothing to do with anything. Anyway, so I ate this goo thing. We'd both eaten one on Friday afternoon. I had a lemon one and he had a berry one. And then on Saturday, I had the berry one and he had the lemon one. And the lemon one was far better than the berry one. The berry one was disgusting. But maybe I thought it was disgusting because immediately, almost immediately, I started to feel bad. And then the rest of Saturday was just feeling bad, and then feeling better, and then feeling bad, and then feeling better. And my husband was just continuing to sneeze. And probably, just long story short, I guess, by the middle of the night, Saturday night, my husband was like super ill, and I was feeling horrible. And when we woke up on Sunday, we were both just really sick. And thank God we were not hiking and camping on Sunday night too. We were going home, and also thank goodness we got home fine, without a hitch, because it involved like buses and trains, and anything that involves buses and trains on a Sunday, especially, it's like, if your detours and delays and cancellations, and what should take 6 hours can end up taking like 10 to 12 hours. Anyway, we got home and we were fine. Well, we weren't fine, we were both really sick. So I was really sick last week, at the first part of the week. Monday and Tuesday were not good. I'm not sure. We didn't do a test, but the other thing is that everybody on the trains, both coming and going, there were so many people who were sick. The coughing, the sneezing, everybody, COVID is just everywhere. And so it could be that we had COVID. I don't know. We're both feeling much better now. He was like a little ahead of me. He thought he had allergies, or at least that's what he said. But of course, later it was like, well, I kind of didn't feel great, but I just thought I would feel better. Like, oh, just say you don't feel good. We could just go home. Anyway, not his fault. And the poor guy. And he, with that and the sleeping pad, he's so sick, and his sleeping pad just kept like, and it was really cold outside on Saturday night. And his sleeping bag just kept going, and he'd have to refill it, like reinflate it, and it was a time. Anyway, it was a time. And anyway, you're not here to hear about camping, because this isn't a camping channel. All of that to say, I had this waiting when I got home. Oh my gosh. Oh, talk about living up to expectations. Thank you, Liz Moore. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, this was fantastic. I I was so immersed. I was so into it. I really, really just absolutely was hooked from the first page, and I could not put it down. And it was great. It was great to be able to just sit and read and have something that kind of just carried me away into the scene. Um, so this is so well done because it is not only multi point of view, it is multi timeline. And that is just not easy to do. That's not an easy feat. So we've got two timelines here, 1961 and 1975. And the book starts in 1975. This is not a spoiler. It happens right on the first few pages of the book, where at a summer camp, and a camp counselor wakes up in the morning and discovers that one of her campers is missing. And it turns out that this camper her name is Barbara Van Laar, and she is the daughter of the camp's owner. Not not the caretakers, but the owners, the people who own the land. And they're a very wealthy family, and they have sort of a compound, and part of it is the camp, and then part of it is their home, which is called Self-Reliance. And it is also the 100th anniversary of Self-Reliance, of the house. And so the parents are having guests and having a very big party, and a lot of things are going on. And so it turns out that this young girl has gone missing. And then we also learn that it just so happens that, 12 years earlier, okay, so maybe it's 1963. 12 years earlier, the Van Laar's son, Bear, also had gone missing and was never found. And so we get the two timelines of the cases and the incidents around these two missing children. And in 1975, we have the camp counselor Louise, we have Barbara's bunkmate Tracy, who is a point of view character, and then we have members of the Alice, the mother of the Van Laar, of Barbara's mother. She's the mother of the Van Laar. Alice, who is Barbara's mother and who was also Bear's mother. We have her point of view, and then also a detective named Judita. Oh, what's her last name? I can't think of what her last name is, but she also goes by, her name is Judy, but her real name is Judita, but she goes by Judy. And this was very interesting that these detectives in the Bureau of Investigation, they're in the Adirondacks, so they're in New York State. She's one of the nation's first female detectives. This group of people. So this was something that Liz Moore really wanted to sort of work into this history, which was fantastic. So we follow these two timelines, and she's just so she just manages it. She manages it so beautifully that I never felt like I never had any whiplash. I was never like, what now? And why is this now? And of course, there are other characters who come into play. Like there is the daughter of the person who was the longtime caretaker of the camp. And her name is TJ Hewitt, and she now is in charge of the camp. And so we have kind of her story. And then we have the story of what's happening with the Van Laar family, with Alice, the mother, and the father, who is just, he's very wealthy, and he's just the head of a bank, and he's very cold and very proper, and he has a lot of expectations. And poor Alice, she married this man when she was a debutante. She was only 17 years old, and was really sort of brought into a world where she's just not meant to be anything at all. She's not educated. Her father doesn't believe that women should be educated. He thinks it's a waste of time, um, because she's just going to be a society wife, which is what she does become. And we just sort of see her, um, her sort of trying to live life as an object, as a thing that's sort of almost without any real purpose. And it's really kind of heartbreaking. And then, we meet her daughter, and we get to learn about her. We learn about Barbara. It kind of goes back in time in that summer, to a few months before Barbara disappeared. So we meet Barbara and we see her situation, and we see her friendship with Tracy. And we meet Louise, and we meet her family, and we understand what's going on with her. And Louise is from the nearby town of Shattuck, and the people of Shattuck really do a lot to sort of support the Van Laars, and they really helped with the search for Bear, and how they work for the Van Laars at the camp and in their house, and how the ways the town really support the Van Laars, but how the Van Laars don't really support the town. There's a lot of that about like class divide, and all of these big differences, and this sort of in this time period, especially between the early 60s and then now it being 1975. And you've got kind of a lot of things changing in the world. And I just thought it was fantastic. There's you're in the forest. Like I said, she creates this very immersive world, which apparently Liz Moore grew up going to the Adirondacks. Her family had a little cabin there. They still go to that. She takes her children and husband there. So she spent a lot of time there. It's a place that she knows really well, and that comes through. And the characters are so well drawn. I particularly liked Louise and Judy. I thought they were fantastic characters, and people that you kind of you're rooting for, and they just have interesting problems and challenges ahead of them. Especially Judy, because of she's sort of new on the job, and she's this investigator with all these other men who are much older than she is, and how she kind of pulls herself forward, and how also she does have some quiet champions who sort of also help her and want to see, you can tell they want to see her succeed. So I just thought that was just fantastic. So I highly recommend it. I'm obviously not going to talk too much about it because no spoilers. I really loved this, and I will read it again. And it makes me want to pick up her other books. And isn't that always the problem? Isn't that always the way? All right, so I wasted all this time talking about camping, and I wanted to talk about other things that I've read this year that have been really good. And I'm looking at I have to look at my books list because that's so frustrating. Like, what did I read? When did I read it? Yeah, and I let too much time go before I talk about books, but another book that I wanted to talk about really quickly that I really enjoyed this year was Mobility by Lydia Kiesling. That was a fantastic novel. I've been following Lydia Kiesling for a very long time. Ever since she had her blog, she had just like a typepad or a WordPress blog, and I think it was like Widmer Pools Reviews or something like that. I'll have to look it up and see if I can find the name of it. And she had that blog, and I think she was reading modern library classics mostly and doing reviews. But the way she wrote, like her, they were more than just like book reviews. It was like little bits of life and then little bits of reviews. And then she left there and she went to the Millions, and she wrote for the Millions. She also did freelance writing for some other publications online and I think in print. And then she became the editor of the Millions, and I think she was the editor of the Millions from 2016 to 2019 or something like that. So for a good long while. And then she wrote her first novel, California, and I haven't read that one. But I had Mobility on my radar and had been wanting to read it, and it was one of those things where I was like, you know what, I'm going to read that. So I got it on a whim. I can't remember if I got it like on Kindle sale or not. I got it on Kindle. And I just thought that it was absolutely fantastic. And it's the story, it's sort of like a life story, if you will. Starts in the late 90s. The main character is Bunny. It's all from Bunny's point of view. And they are in, her family is in the diplomatic service, and they are in, now I'm going to forget, Azerbaijan. And I can't remember the name of the city. Oh, anyway, they are there. Her father sort of does like PR type of work, so he's not, he himself is not like an ambassador or anything like that, but he does more like marketing and PR for the diplomatic service. And it starts there, and she meets some people who are sort of intriguing, and she's a teenager. She's really more concerned with, like, you know, her clothes, and she's got a crush on an older boy, or you know, a young man, I guess I should say. And she begins to hear things about the diplomatic service, and then she begins to hear some things about like oil and the oil industry and different things. And you know, she's sort of just picking up these hints of things that are happening in the world, but really, you know, she's a teenager, and she's concerned with teenage things. And the book goes on, and it follows Bunny through her life. And when we next see her again, she is in Houston. She's graduated from college. Her parents have separated, and she's living, well, she's not really in Houston. She's actually outside of Beaumont. She's in or maybe she's in Beaumont. I can't remember. She's somewhere in that area. And like she has an uncle who works for the oil industry, and they've moved into her grandmother's house. Her grandmother has passed away. She and her mother are living there, and she's sort of adrift. She's not sure what she's going to do with her life. She has an older brother who's gone into like the Peace Corps. Her father is still in diplomatic service and is, you know, half a world away. And she ends up looking for a job, and she goes through like one of those like Manpower type agencies, or maybe it is Manpower, I can't remember. And she gets a job as basically a technical writer with a small oil company. And it was really fascinating because, you know, on the one hand, she knows that the oil industry isn't great. It's the, you know, the beginning of more talk about climate change, but she also is a person who really doesn't have a great deal of like sense of self, or sense maybe of self-worth. And her job does give her that. And she starts to get to be trusted, and she starts to get to be better at this job, and she gets a promotion, and she keeps on going, and she keeps making these steps and these steps. And, you know, eventually one of it's a family owned business, and someone in the family kind of pulls her aside and says, well, I maybe want to start this whole clean energy thing, and, you know, maybe you could help me. And so it sort of like follows her career as it progresses, but she stays in the oil industry, and she ends up sort of going into marketing and social media. And there are just these things that happen where it's like she's living her life, and, you know, climate crisis and things with the oil industry, and, you know, the oil spill in the Gulf, and these different things are happening. And it's like she thinks about it, and she's affected by it, but she just keeps on going and living her life. And it's kind of a hard book to explain, but I just thought it was really fascinating in terms of like how easy it is to forget, I guess. You know, the trappings of a life, and kind of putting your head down and trying to be a pretty good person and to think about it sometimes, but then also to be a person just concerned with very much like your day to day, your you know, your boyfriend or girlfriend or significant other, your job, how you're doing at your job, how are you pleasing the people who you work for, how are you doing with your family, um, are you keeping up? Are you keeping up with your friends? Are you keeping up with, you know, who you thought you were going to be? And that, like, in the background is just this, I don't know. I mean, it's sort of like this giant, growing, ominous cloud that's always back there, but that you just don't really notice. Like, oh, I know that it's a dark cloud, but I don't really think it's going to rain. Oh, what am I going to have for lunch? I don't know. It's a difficult book to explain, but it's really smoothly written. I really enjoyed the writing style. I really was so caught up in this tale. And I know I'm leaving a lot of things out because I'm having trouble like remembering the specifics because I read it like 2 months ago. But yeah, I really loved it. I highly recommend it. I don't remember it. I highly recommend it. No, I do remember it, but it's just hard to remember what happened when. And also, I don't like to be spoilery, and I might just blurt something out, and that turns out to be kind of a spoiler. So I'm not going to do that. I've already thought of that and kept myself from saying anything. So there was that. And then what else? What else? Now, what am I reading now? I am reading. I've got everything stacked up. I am reading a couple of things right now. I have been reading Loaded, The Life and Afterlife of the Velvet Underground by Dylan Jones. This is an oral history of the Velvet Underground. This was recommended by Michael Clark, aka Book of Dust, YouTube supporter and commenter, who I'm sure you have seen around if you hang around the channels that I hang around, and you probably do. So this is really great. I am really enjoying this. I'm not going super fast. I think I've been working on it for a few weeks, and I'm only about halfway through. Not because I haven't enjoyed it, but because I picked up this, and then I had a real book hangover after this one. And then I picked up, I'm probably gonna lose all kinds of booktube cred on this one. I had a real life buddy read planned to read Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. I started that when we were on our trip. I started reading it on the train, and I just could not get into it. I could not get into it. I got about 20% of the way, and I just couldn't get into it. I know it's me. It's not the book. I think it just has to do with when I was reading it. I think I was still actually not feeling great now that I look back on it, because I was having a hard time reading on the train, and I was also worried about the girl sitting across the aisle from me who was hacking and coughing, and for also some reason wearing rollerblades. And so I was just so distracted. And then when I went back to it and kept trying to go back to it, I just couldn't get into it. So I have it. I bought it. It's set aside for the time being. I will go back to it, but I set it aside. And instead, I am now picked up Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. And I'm really enjoying this. I don't have a bookmark in it. I'm just trying to remember where I am. I think I'm about 100 pages in, and this one's going much faster, a little bit lighter, but I am enjoying this. And this is Eleanor Bennett won't let her secrets die with her. When her estranged children, Benny and Byron, reunite for her funeral, they receive an unexpected inheritance. First, a traditional Caribbean black cake to remind them of their roots. Second, the story of a decades-old murder that shatters everything they thought they knew about their mother. So kind of it says it's a family drama meets murder mystery. I'm down with that. I'm into that. I don't know. Summer is a mystery time. It's like I always want to read mysteries in the summer. So this is gonna fit that bill. What else? Writing. I have to get back to that. I gotta tell you, I almost just gave up entirely. I had a writer's group the weekend before we went camping, and I had a piece that I'd been working on. I had a chapter that I'd been working on, or section, or whatever you want to call it, and I turned it into my writer's group, and then I decided that I just thought, I don't know if this is working at all, and then I was going back through some other old things that I'd written for the same book, and I found this one section that I'd lost. Don't ask me how I lost it, but I lost it. And I read it and I was like, this is really good. I want to give them this instead. So I gave them that instead, and I got feedback on that. And I got really great feedback. I was very happy. But then this past weekend, I opened everything up and was looking at it, and I was like, I can't do it. I can't make it work. I can't make it work. It's tough, man. Writing is hard. I mean, I never thought it would be easy. But one thing that I have learned about myself in this last weekend that I finally realized is that I am not, I tell myself like I'm a pantser, like, oh, I'm all about discovery, and I'm really not. I do this thing where I have to like pin stuff down. I have to pin it down, and I just finally realized I've got to quit pinning things down. I have to stop trying to pin things down. Because I get really fixed. I get like a fixed idea in my mind about how something should go, or what this character should do, or how this character should feel about something, when clearly the rest of the book is not going in that direction. And so then I want to try to make the whole book come back to that one thing, when really it's like I need to let go of the thing. And it's the hardest thing to do. It's the hardest thing to do. And it's been driving me crazy. But on Sunday I thought I'm gonna just set it aside for a month, and then I'm gonna push it over there. And then this morning I got up and I was like, I'm going to just do some free writing. I'm just going to do some free writing. I'm not going to try to write scenes. I'm not going to write anything. I'm going to do some free writing. And now, as of this morning, I have a list of possible scenes, because I actually let myself let go for 5 minutes of this has to be like this, and this has to be like that. And when nothing is in stone, because it's not like I have a draft, I'm still really kind of in first draft mode. So anyway, that's that. I know you guys probably don't want to hear anything about that. You guys don't care. I mean, or maybe you care. I don't know. But that's where we are. Just in case you had that burning wonder that sort of something's missing and I don't know what it is. Oh, I wish I know it. I wish I knew how Priscilla was doing with her writing. Now you can go on. You can get on with your week. You could just, you're welcome. What can I say? Anyway, that's it. That's it for me. This is too long already. It's going to be like 35 minutes. Okay. I hope that you're well. Let me know what you're reading. Let me know if you've read Black Cake, if you liked it. Let me know if you're going to read The God of the Woods. Read The God of the Woods. Let me know what else you're reading, what else is going on with you, and, fingers crossed that my mentions thing gets fixed. I'll do that map tag, but I don't know about the other tags because I don't remember what they are. So I'm hoping that they return. And, you know, so maybe you'll see me next week with a tag video. Okay. Okay. I hope that you're well. Thinking of all of you. Do everything you can to get through the days and try to make it positive. Focus on the little things. That's what I'm doing. Read a good book. Okay, I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye.